for the chimichangas. Have the fun getting nerdy, fly with Adrian APM, also known as Solid High, the comic guy. Boom, pow, got pops like Funko, how you laughing now? Eating comics for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. A real winner, like DP and Spidey, talking about other superheroes. Let's open some mystery boxes and celebrate weirdos. Imagination never ends, united through comics, we all friends.
Dead End Kids, Suburban Job, man. Tell us what's cracking with that?
Yeah. So depending on when people hear this, but very recently we just announced a sequel series to my first miniseries, Dead End Kids, which we talked about a little while ago. The sequel is called Dead End Kids: The Suburban Job. It's a 4-issue miniseries that'll be soliciting in November and start coming out in January. It'll run January through April, and it is the better of the two books, if you ask me. I'm a little biased, but sort of the elevator pitch for it is it's about 3 kids, shocking, I know, in 2008, who are all the loved ones and survivors of people who died on or because of 9/11. It's a personal story. I grew up in central New Jersey on the coast, in a small town called Union Beach on the bottom of the Raritan Bay. Our beachfront looked northeast to lower Manhattan. So on a clear day, you could see the World Trade Center if you had good eyes. So I always grew up sort of in the shadow of the World Trade Center in lower Manhattan. And the September 11th terrorist attacks were something that really impacted me and the people who I grew up with, the people I knew and I loved in lots of different ways. I come from a family of first responders, firemen, EMS, EMTs. I know people who were on the ground at 9/11, working the relief efforts. I know friends who lost parents, aunts and uncles, cousins in the attacks. I know people who ended up going to Afghanistan and later Iraq to fight in the wars that resulted because of 9/11 and lost their lives. So this is something that's deeply affected me in a lot of ways over the years and is a topic that I was interested in exploring. The first book was about childhood trauma. This book is a little more laser focused. It's about childhood trauma, but the trauma that resulted in kids' lives because of 9/11. So we've got 3 kids in 2008, so it's set a little bit after 9/11. I didn't want to write a book about the events of the day. I didn't think I could capture it in a meaningful way, and I didn't really want to do sort of what I call tragedy porn and kind of just write about this thing and make a bunch of money off of it. Like that didn't feel right. But so we set the book a little bit after. The focus really isn't on the event so much as how it affected these kids. We've got 3 new kids. We sort of took a true detective approach. So it's same look and feel, like, it's the same team making the same kind of book, but a new cast, new setting, sort of a new crime. This one's a heist book rather than a whodunit. And it's these kids, Tori, Brian, and Amna. Tori is the daughter of a firefighter who dies on the scene of Ground Zero on September 12th. Brian is the brother of a soldier in the army who is killed in Afghanistan a few years later. And Amna is a young Pakistani American woman who is dealing with sort of the exacerbated racial tensions in the wake of the terrorist attacks and sort of what that looks like and what's affecting her life as a 14, 15-year-old. So it's an incredibly personal book in the way that the first book wasn't. But if you read the first book, it's very much in the same vein, the same tone, same look. We got the same art team, same cover artist, same letter. I mean, it's a heist book, so we had to get the team back together. You know what I mean? So it's an interesting book. Like I'm pretty excited for people to check it out, to be able to read it finally. I've got some advanced copies of the first issue. Let's see, get my face here. So it's another Chris Mad cover. Chris did the covers for the first series. He did the interior art for No Heroine. Chris is one of my favorite collaborators. if you've read the first series, you'll recognize this trade dress and this sort of look and feel of the covers, but with a few little tweaks to the style to let it be kind of its own thing as well. It's just, yeah, we've gotten some early feedback from readers, and like I'm honestly like surprised and blown away by how much people are responding well. Because when you have when you're a rookie and you get up to bat for the first time, as a fill-in hitter and you hit a home run on your first time at bat, like, that's what it was like for Dead End Kids #1 for me. Like, it was, this book was so much bigger a success than I ever anticipated. So then next time you get up to bat, all eyes are on you. Was it a fluke? Was it just the wind going the right way? But then No Heroine came out and like did better, honestly, like in terms of sales and reception. Like, it was as good or better. So now I'm sort of at my third at bat, and against the same pitcher I did the first time, and you always wonder if you're going to foul out. Like, it could have been a fluke.
You're hoping for that grand slam. Now that's what.
Yeah. Now, honest to God, like, no bullshit, this is definitely the best thing I've ever written. It's the most meaningful. It's the most interesting too. Writing a heist is not easy, and it gives you a lot of opportunity to do some really cool stuff. So I'm really excited about this book, and I think a lot of people are going to enjoy it, especially if they read the first one. But if you didn't read the first one, like, this one is a fresh entry point. You don't need to have read the first one, and that's sort of by design. But for people who did read the first one, I promise there will be something in there for you that will get you excited for something down the line if it comes up. I can't say anything.
Sure.
But, if you read the first one, definitely read the second one.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, from reading like the first volume 1, right, and then going into this, like, I got to read the PDF of this, and it right off the bat, you automatically, you're like, oh, okay, I feel good. This is comfortable. It feels like it has that, like you said, feel, So I was excited, and then I'm reading it, and I'm just like, shit, I want more. Like, that's what happened with Dead End Kids when I read the originals. I was like, you want more, but I get not just pushing. Just you're putting it out there. You're putting a good story, and you made it work so well. So that's why I'm excited about this, and the fact that it's 4 books. I'm like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, and I'm really excited that people are really excited about this, because, like I said, you worry that you're going to be Chumbawamba, you're going to be a one-hit wonder, and I'm glad that it seems like I won't be. And this, like, I keep saying, this book is special, but there's so much cool little stuff going on. Like, when you get to the end of the first issue and you close the book and you see the cover again, like, there are just little things on the cover that make so much more sense. And it's like trying to build like a really rewarding reading experience for people. But also, like, create an experience for different kinds of collectors and readers. One of the things we did on No Heroine was we did a incentive cover for the first time on one of my books. It was a 1-in-5 cover by Ben Temple Smith. Ben's a buddy of mine. He did a cover for Dead End Kids. He's done cover for my books. Yep. Ben's just, I love working with Ben. He's so easy. He makes it easy, and he's super talented. And so we did a 1-in-5 incentive, and that did incredibly well. There was a shop in Massachusetts, Paper Asylum, that was able to get like 300 copies in pre-orders, and 60 people getting that cover. The guy reached out to me, Pete, and he's like, we did better than Batman numbers on this book. It's just crazy to me. It's absolutely crazy to me. But that 1-in-5 cover was kind of an experiment. Like, people like incentives, and like they like variants, and we were interested in trying something new. And Source Point Press is incredibly good about letting me kind of do what I want with the marketing for the books, within reason. But they don't tell me no very often, and they'll let me try things and see what happens. And that incentive cover was really, really successful, and a lot of people loved it. So we wanted to do something like that for the Suburban Job, but with a twist. Try a little something new, see if we can grow the formula a little bit. So every issue of Dead End Kids, the Suburban Job, will have a 1-in-5 cover this time. A lot of people, after they got the first one for No Heroine, saying, are you going to do it for the second? Are you going to do it for the third? We didn't, but this time around we're going to do one for each cover, and they will be connecting. So, if you get all four, you can make one big larger image out of it. It's pretty cool. This is the first incentive. That's the 1 in 5. It's by Ryan Kincaid, who, if you're not familiar with Ryan's work, definitely check him out. Ryan does some really cool stuff for DC right now. He's doing a lot of Harley Quinn, a lot of Punchline. He's a really talented artist, and I'm super grateful to have him in my network and to be able to work with him. This is the first of 4 covers. They'll all connect to make one larger image if you're able to get all of them. And that's sort of we're trying to play into things like collectability and rarity and see how it goes. Like, I haven't been making comics a long time. I don't think a lot of people have thought about like what makes a good launch, and I'm trying to kind of get it down to a science and see what works and what doesn't work. And I think the 1 in 5 incentive was a really good idea. People were hungry for more, so we're going to see what happens when we do more. And for the people who are able to get all 4, you're going to get this incredible larger image that Ryan and Nathan Swiderski have put together. And I've seen the finished thing. It's awesome, and I'm pretty excited for people to check that out.
Nice. I feel like I can maybe kind of see it in my head.
Yeah, it's gonna be it'll be 2 by 2, so it'll be 2 across the top, 2 across the bottom. This is the upper left corner. So we're doing that. A lot of people for No Heroin also ask, when you're doing a 1 in 5, are you going to do a 1 in 10, 1 in 25, 1 in 50, 1 in 100? And honestly, like, I'm not like a huge fan of ratio variants. Like, I think they're cool to an extent, but at some point, like, there's a barrier to entry that is financial, and it's not fair. Like, if somebody enjoys something, like, making it really hard for them to get it is, to me, that's shitty. Like, there have definitely been things I've like. There's like a 1 in 250 cover for the new relaunch for Power Rangers, and I definitely want it, and I'm never gonna get it because it's $250 for like a $4 comic. I don't know. It's not something I'm comfortable doing, or at least asking of people. But I did want to, I did hear a need and want from people to do something a little rare, a little more special. So for Dead End Kids, the Suburban Job, for the first issue only, we're going to do a 1 in 10 cover. So slightly higher barrier to access, but still not crazy unreasonable, like a 1 in 250. We've mentioned on here Ben Temple-Smith. I love working with Ben. At this point, it's tradition that I do a cover with Ben. So we've got Ben on the 1 in 10. He put together what is probably, if not my favorite, it's definitely in my top 2 covers for the book and for anything I've ever done. But he just did this really Ben Temple-Smith, eerie and kind of somber, very beautiful in an eerie way cover for the book. Really tapped into that 9/11 imagery in a tasteful way, which that could have really been dangerous. Playing with that imagery is a lot of people hold it in a very high regard, and we wanted to make sure everything was tasteful. And Ben he nailed it like he always does. So this is the 1 in 10. So for every 10 copies your shop orders, they can order 1 copy of this. This one will be a little rare, little harder to come by. But for the people who have collected Ben's stuff over the years, want another awesome Ben cover, it's for you. If you are a variant person in general and you like Dead End Kids, this is a little bit more special. Or if you just like my stuff and you've gotten the other 2 Ben covers and you want to keep that train rolling, another opportunity. But yeah, so that's the skinny for the first issue. We have some retailer stuff coming down the line. I can't say too much about that yet because we're still kind of locking everything in and putting things down. But we'll have fewer retail partners this time around. We did 25 different covers for No Heroin. We're going to do, I think, 6 retail partners this time around, but each retailer is committing to a set of 4 covers. So that way you'll get sort of a collectible, consistent experience from issue 1 through 4 from the same artist, from the same retailer, and really just kind of like a really curated kind of cool collectible approach to doing these incentives. Because like I think the incentive model, not the incentive, the retailer exclusive model it can be used better. Like we always get a lot of number 1s. Like I think Crossover is about to come out, I think next month, and there's probably 100 #1 covers, right?
Right.
So sales on #1 are going to look great, and it's a Donnie book, so like it's going to do really well either way. But nobody really wants a #2 variant or a #3 or a number 11, unless you're something is killing the children. Like it's very rare. But I think that that can be pushed back on a little bit, and the model can be improved, or at least we can try. We'll see what happens. But I like the idea of, I love covers that are sets. We've done a few of them on different books. Like the Peach set, I think, was a hit. Esteban Salinas did a gorgeous set of covers for Dead and Kids Volume 1. And I like stuff like that. I think that it rewards people. It maybe discourages flipping a little more too, like, because if you get the first one, you get the second one, maybe you want to hang on to them because now you're collecting it. I don't know. It's just a thought that I had, this experiment I wanted to do. We'll see how it works. Could blow up my face. Who knows? But we're going to turn out a bunch of cool covers one way or the other. And I'm going to, just scream from the rooftops to anybody who wants to hear about them.
Well, I don't think it's going to be any tub thumping. Don't worry. You're going to, you'll be just fine. No one hit wonders for you.
Fingers crossed.
All right, so now we've learned a lot about what you've written and stuff. I kind of want to ask you about the whole indie. Like, I mean, I honestly feel like right now I'm reading more indie than I've ever read, and it's good. Like, with your stuff, like I am just, you put what you put out, and then I'm reading. I could, just any kind of indie book, and I just feel like it's great. Like, do you think it's because people are just sick of the typical superhero, or do you think it's the writing, or what? Where's your head at?
I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on this, and some things I know for sure, some things I think are probably true, some things maybe I'm full of shit about. Like, it's spectrum. I think for me, I read a lot of Marvel. I read a lot of DC. I try to keep up with everything. Like, and that is because I'm a fan and because I want to know where everything's at should opportunity come knocking one day. But I've been reading comics, Big Two stuff for about 20 years now, a little bit less. And I honestly, like, I never want to see Captain America fight Hydra again. I never want to see Daredevil fight the Hand again. Like I've seen it, and it's been being done for 20 and 30 and 40 and 50 years. Captain America's been being done for 80 years. It's
right.
I think that there's sort of a circular nature to Big Two comics that is incredibly continuity driven, and it kind of is hitting critical mass at this point. Like, so it's very hard to get into Marvel. Like, I remember when I started reading comics, like I was on Wikipedia every day looking up who AIM was and like what the backstory between Hawkeye and Mockingbird was. Like,
sure.
There was I keep using this phrase, but a huge barrier to entry. And I was driven enough to get past it. Most people aren't. And that's part of the reason why, like, we've seen Marvel's actual sales on titles going down, and books getting more expensive. Like, there are fewer people reading Marvel than there ever have been before. And that's, it's not right or wrong. It's just sort of the nature of a product that, it's like jumping into the last 5 minutes of a movie. Like,
sure.
It's hard. And I think indie comics really work in the opposite way. Like, indie comics, not a lot of ongoings. The ongoings that do exist are really well collected these days. You can go buy all of Wickdiv in one go right now if you wanted to. I think they're fresher because people like me have been reading the same story over and over again. Like, I've seen Daredevil fight the Hand a bunch of times.
Right.
And I am pushing back against stuff like that, and other writers and artists are pushing against stuff like that, and create like I love God Country. Keep talking about Donnie, but God Country I think is one of my favorite books to come out in the last 5-6 years, and it's Thor, and it's all these other things we've seen, but in a really fresh new way. And indie comics is really good at finding a new way to talk about these things that have worked before and that people really liked, but are maybe a little bit tired of. I also think that specifically in 2020, the pandemic and Diamond shutting down and some of the decisions DC has made have really made it easier for indie companies to get noticed by retailers and readers, to have prominent shelf space. Like I know some retailers aren't carrying DC Comics anymore. Like they don't want to get on board with the new distribution model, and now they have a whole bunch of empty space that they need to fill. And your Source Point presses and your Mad Caves and your Valiants and your smaller publishers are swooping in and eating up that shelf space, and now they're front and center and people are noticing. So I mean, there's a bunch of things happening. I also think that sort of technology has really brought us to a place where it's possible now. Like writing a comic, finding an artist who lives somewhere else in the world, sending it to print, getting the book funded on Kickstarter. Like we have all these tools and avenues to make comics now, and it's leading to a rise in the number of publishers. Like Marvel and DC's sales have definitely been shrinking over time. Like, I remember a time when most hot Marvel books were selling 100,000 copies, an issue. And it was 15 years ago. Now, 40,000 for like an issue of Thor is not crazy. So it's definitely shrinking. But the market is expanding too. Like where we had maybe 15 publishers 15 years ago, we probably have 200 publishers now. You've got AWA, you've got Mad Cave, you've got Scout, Valiant, Vault, Source Point Press, Comics Tribe. I mean, the list goes on, and that's a result of the access being there. And people can make comics more easily and distribute them more easily, and there's services to help with all that. So part of the reason Marvel and DC shares are shrinking over time is not because the industry is shrinking, but because now it's shared among 200 people instead of 15, right? So it's a lot of things. Personally, outside of 2020 being what it is, I do think that the market is the most healthy it's ever been and the biggest it's ever been. I just think that people are only looking at a small part of it, and it looks like that part is shrinking.
Sure. Through the indie books, is there anything that comes up that you feel like, okay, I shouldn't read that, because I don't want it to, interfere with my writing process? I know a lot of people are jumping on Department of Truth that just came out and they're going nuts about it, and there's just all kinds of. Is there anything you ever say? Well, I don't want to jump into that just in case it messes with me.
No, I'm not really like that. I don't. Yeah, no. I mean, my creative process is so insular, specific to me, and that I don't know. I definitely get inspired by things, but part of what I do is I tell stories that are extremely personal to me, and I can't take that from somebody else. So I'm less worried about it. I mean, No Heroine is clearly a Buffy the Vampire Slayer type book, and I love Buffy. I grew up reading Buffy and watching Buffy. So clearly that was the inspiration, but it's very clearly not Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Right.
So, yeah. And Dead End Kids is definitely Stand By Me, but it is not Stand By Me. So I think it's unavoidable at this point to make comparisons. It's going to happen. I mean, you could say that Dead End Kids is a Suburban Job. It's a heist book with kids. It's 4 kids walking to a bank, but it's a really different book.
Right.
So I don't worry so much about stuff like that, and I try not to shut doors on myself. If I think something's interesting, I'll definitely read it, and if it's really, really good, I'll study it and try and take the really good stuff out of it and learn it. It's always something in the toolbox, and you want to have a really good toolbox going into anything.